You know, when we think about history, our minds usually go straight to kings, queens, generals, the big names. But what if some of the most powerful players on that stage weren't people at all? Today, we're diving into the weather disasters that literally changed the course of human history.
Think about it. How many times a day do you talk about the weather? It's the ultimate small talk, right? The classic icebreaker. But is that all it is? Or is it something much, much bigger? A force that can topple entire civilizations, literally redraw maps, and shape the future we're living in right now. Yeah, history shows us that weather isn't just a backdrop, it's a main character, capable of ending empires and building new worlds. So, let's get into it. All right, Section 1, Weather, History's Hidden Force. We're going to look at 6 moments in time where the atmosphere wasn't just, the setting for the story. No, it was the story. This is where weather steps out of the shadows and becomes this hidden, incredibly powerful force. Okay, Section 2, When the Rains Failed. We're going to start with 2 stories about one of our oldest, most primal fears. What happens when the sky just dries up, when the water stops? So first up, the Mayan Great Drought, way back in the 8th and 9th centuries. Our first stop takes us to ancient America, home of the Maya. I mean, this was an incredible civilization. Think monumental pyramids, unbelievably advanced calendars, just brilliant. But even they couldn't stand up to a catastrophic change in the climate. So, what happened? Well, the cause was a really, really long failure of the monsoon cycles. We're talking decades without the predictable rains they absolutely depended on for farming. And the consequence? Wow. It wasn't just a bad harvest. It was the total collapse of their entire network of amazing cities. You see, when the food ran out, war broke out over what little was left. And just like that, a truly great civilization began this long, slow fade into history. All right, now let's fast forward a few hundred years and jump over to Europe. Here, the problem was the complete opposite. It wasn't too little rain, it was way, way too much. This is the Great Famine, from 1315 to 1317, when Europe was just plunged into this period of nonstop rain and cold that kicked off an absolute catastrophe. The cause was simple and brutal. Relentless rain and cold that just rotted the crops right in the fields. But the consequence? It was this devastating domino effect. Mass starvation swept the continent, which weakened the entire population just 1 generation before the Black Death showed up. And this crisis started to pull apart the entire feudal system. So you see, it wasn't just a famine. It was the beginning of the end for a whole way of life. Okay, Section 3, When the Winds Blew. We've talked about rain, now let's shift gears to wind. We're going to look at 2 storms that didn't just cause a ton of destruction, they actually changed science and politics forever. First, let's talk about the Great Storm of 1703. Imagine this, a storm with unbelievable fury just slams into England. We are talking hurricane-force winds in a place that almost never sees anything like that. It flattened entire forests, smashed thousands of homes, and basically crippled the powerful English Navy. But here's the crazy part, the totally unexpected consequence. The sheer power of this storm and the super detailed accounts written about it, like from the author Daniel Defoe, it sparked a scientific revolution. For the very first time, people started to systematically watch, record, and try to actually understand the weather. So in a very real sense, this disaster gave birth to modern meteorology. How wild is that? Okay, let's jump forward again, this time to 1970. We're about to talk about what is still the single deadliest weather event ever recorded in history, the Bangladesh Cyclone, or the Bola Cyclone, which hit what was then called East Pakistan. Just take a second and look at that number. 500,000. An estimated 500,000 people died. The scale of the tragedy from the storm surges, it's just almost impossible to even wrap your head around. And this is the moment a weather disaster becomes a political earthquake. The cyclone and the storm surge, that was the cause, but the world-changing consequence came from what happened next. The government's response was seen as completely inadequate, and that sparked a political firestorm. It fueled a war for independence, and within a year, a brand new nation, Bangladesh, was born. A storm literally redrew the map of the world. All right, Section 4, the modern warning signs. Let's bring things into more recent times. These next 2 events aren't just history lessons. They're really urgent warnings about our relationship with the environment and the climate. First, the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. The American Great Plains were slammed by a catastrophe that felt almost biblical. But here's the thing. The Dust Bowl wasn't just a case of bad luck or a simple drought. It was more complicated than that.
It was a perfect storm, really, of nature and human choices. You had a severe drought, yes, but that was combined with unsustainable farming practices that had stripped the land and left the topsoil totally exposed. And the consequences were massive. It triggered one of the biggest mass migrations in American history, and it forced the government to create brand new environmental policies, changing the country's relationship with the land forever. And finally, let's talk about an event from our own lifetimes that was a truly terrifying wake-up call. I'm talking about the 2003 European Heatwave. In the summer of that year, this just suffocating blanket of heat settled over the entire continent.
More than 70,000 people died. Think about that. 70,000. It was this brutal reminder that extreme weather isn't just about dramatic storms and floods. Heat, silent, invisible heat, can be one of the deadliest forces of all. And this one event changed everything. The cause was that record-breaking heat, but the consequence was this massive, seismic shift in how people thought. All of a sudden, climate change wasn't some distant, abstract problem for the future. It was right here, right now, and it was deadly. That heat wave put climate policy into high gear, it spurred a ton of new research, and it completely transformed the conversation.
Okay, Section 5. History's urgent lesson. So after all that, from the ancient Maya to modern Europe, what's the takeaway? What is history trying to tell us right now?
Well, it seems to boil down to three big lessons. First, fragility. Our complex societies, no matter how advanced we think we are still incredibly vulnerable. Second, unpreparedness. Time and time again, we see that underestimating the risk leads to absolutely immense costs. And third, innovation. It's interesting, right? For better or worse, it's often catastrophe that forces us to make big leaps forward in science, in policy, and just in how we think. So you see, understanding these past disasters isn't just some dusty history lesson. It's about creating a roadmap for the future. It's about figuring out how to navigate the challenges that, let's be honest, are already here.
History is sending a pretty clear warning signal, loud and clear. The real question is, are we ready to listen?